He typed my street name before I'd ever told him where I lived. That was the moment I realized I wasn't talking to a stranger online. I was talking to someone watching me. I was 19. I'm still living in a nowhere town in Indiana, the kind where every Friday night smells like cheap fries and exhaust. After graduation, most of my friends left for college. I stayed behind, working late shifts at Harborside Eats, a tiny grill off Highway 9. The nights felt endless, quiet, empty, like the world had moved on without me. That's when I found Town Square Live, a dusty old chat room site that looked straight out of 2004. It was supposed to be harmless fun. People from nearby towns were discussing movies, music, gossip, and the bad weather. I joined under the handle Skytrail because Skyline Girl was already taken. The regulars started recognizing me. They'd greet me when I logged in. It almost felt like community, invisible but comforting. Then came Graydor. He rarely spoke in the main room, but when he did, people noticed. Short sentences, no emojis. No jokes, he seemed older, maybe in his mid-20s. One night, a private message popped up. Graydor. You're local, right? I've seen you in here a few times, me. Yeah, small town life, you? Graydor. About 2 hours north, college, computer science major. He said his name was Evan, polite, soft-spoken. He asked about my classes, favorite bands, and dreams of leaving town. Nothing creepy, nothing flirty, just easy. Before I realized it, chatting with him became part of my nightly routine. Get home from work, shower, log in, see if he was there. He usually was. Sometimes he'd vanish for a day or two, then return like nothing happened, claiming midterms or power outage. It made him feel real, human. Then one night, he said something that didn't fit. Graydor. You always take the same route home from work? Me. I guess, why? Graydor, Cypress Lane's not safe that late. The lamp on the corner's been out for weeks. I stared at the screen. The lamp had gone out 3 nights earlier. Nobody mentioned it online. Nobody except me could have known. I walked that way. My stomach tightened. I laughed it off, me. Lucky guess. Graydor, small town? People noticed things. I didn't reply. He messaged again the next evening like nothing weird had happened. I told myself I was overreacting. The internet's full of coincidences. Weeks passed. We talked about Thanksgiving, weather, and stupid memes. Then on a gray Friday, he wrote, Graydor. That photo on your dresser's adorable. Your dog? My heart sank. I didn't have any photos posted anywhere. Me. What photo? Graydor. The one next to the curtain. Golden Retriever, right? My room had one small window facing the side yard. My curtain had been hanging slightly crooked for weeks. I slammed my laptop shut, heart pounding, hands shaking. For minutes, I just sat there listening for footsteps, breathing, anything, nothing. Finally, I forced myself to look. I yanked the curtain aside in one sharp motion. Darkness. Cold glass. Just my own reflection staring back. Still, I couldn't shake the feeling that something had been there a second before I looked. I stayed offline for 2 days. When I logged back in, a message waited. Graydor. You shouldn't ignore people. Skytrail. I blocked him. I took the initiative to report the account. Logged out. 2 days later, I worked the closing shift. The air outside was freezing, the kind that burns your lungs. The street was empty except for a gray sedan parked under the dead streetlight at the corner. I slowed when I saw it. Old model. The car had dark-tinted windows. Engine idling, my pulse quickened. Maybe it was nothing. Maybe it's a coincidence. Then the headlights flashed twice. I froze. The driver's window rolled down halfway. A man leaned out, hoodie up, face mostly shadow. Need a ride? He called, his tone casual, almost friendly. I shook my head, forcing a laugh. I'm good. He chuckled softly. Come on, Skytrail. It's freezing. The name hit me like ice water. I ran. Behind me, the engine roared. Tires squealed. The sedan rolled forward. Slow but following my breath turned to smoke as I sprinted toward the next intersection. Then, miracle, another. Car's headlights appeared behind us. A black SUV pulled up beside me. The driver's window rolled down. Hey, you left your wallet at work. It was my manager's wife, Shelley. The gray sedan braked hard. Then the car turned and disappeared into a side street. I collapsed against her car, shaking. We went straight to the police. They took my statement, my screenshots of the chat logs and his messages. The officer nodded and said, "We'll look into it." By the time I got home that night, Graydoor's account had vanished, deleted, untraceable. They said the IP was masked through a VPN, no fingerprints, no match. Could have been anyone, the officer said. That's the part that kept me awake, because anyone means someone's still out there. For 2 weeks, every night near closing, that same gray sedan drove past the diner, never stopped, never sped. The vehicle simply cruised slowly under the broken lamp, its headlights dim as if it were observing. Then one night, it didn't. It just stopped coming. It's been 4 years. I moved towns. I went ahead and changed my name online. I moved to a different job, made new friends, and took different routes home. But last week, while closing up the cafe I work at now, my phone buzzed. Unknown number, no profile photo. Text: "Still swing your keys when you walk? Gonna hurt your hand one day." The police traced the number. Burner phone. Unregistered. People laugh when I say I hate chat rooms, that I don't give out my last name, and that I never post where I work. But I know what it's like to have someone make the internet feel alive until you realize it's watching. The scariest monsters aren't hiding under beds or behind screens. They're the ones who learn your habits, your shifts, your streets, and wait under broken lamps for you to walk by like you always do. He waved for help in the snow. 3 men stepped out of that car, and I realized too late I wasn't rescuing anyone. I hate long drives in winter. Not because I'm scared of snow. It's the silence that gets you. The constant hum of tires on frozen asphalt and the rhythmic sound of the wipers captivate me. It traps you inside your head. Last November, I was driving back from my parents' place in northern Minnesota after Thanksgiving. I spent 10 hours on the road. Having promised my boss that I would attend the meeting on Monday, I resolved to complete the entire journey in one go. By the time I hit Route 218, the world was a sheet of gray. The sky was flattening everything with no depth, no light, and just dull motion. Snow began to fall, soft at first, then thicker, erasing the lines on the road. My gas tank was half full. The next town was 30 miles away. It was just me, the car heater, and a radio that only played static. I'd gone nearly an hour without seeing another vehicle when 2 small orange lights blinked through the storm ahead. Hazard flashers. A car sat sideways across the lane, blocking most of it. "Great," I muttered, easing to a stop. A man stood beside it. Waving both arms, he looked desperate. No hat, snow caked on his shoulders, beard stiff with frost. I rolled my window halfway down. "You okay, man?" His accent was thick, maybe Eastern European. "Car stuck. The wheel was stuck in the ditch. You helped me push, yes?" Everything in me hesitated. This stretch of road was empty. No houses, no cell service bars. But he looked cold enough to die out there. "Anyone else coming to help?" I asked. He shook his head quickly. "No service. Please, a small push only," I sighed. My conscience overruled my instincts. "Okay, quick." I pulled on my gloves, stepped out into the biting wind, and followed him toward the car, an old silver Subaru, door-dented taillights pulsing red in the snow. He leaned inside, rummaging for something. "Are you good?" I called. No answer. For a second I thought he said something, but his voice was too low, like he was talking to someone else. Then he straightened, almost startled. Yes. We pushed now." We both leaned into the bumper. My boots slipped and tires spun. The car barely budged. That's when I saw it. A shape in the back seat. Movement. A shadow began to shift behind the frosted glass. I froze. "Hey, someone in there?" The man's shoulders stiffened. He turned slowly, face blank. "No one," he said flatly. But his tone had changed, the polite desperation gone. Just cold silence. My stomach dropped. "Look, man, I think you've got this handled. I'm gonna—" The rear door cracked open. A second man stepped out, tall, hood pulled tight. Then another door opened. A third figure emerged, face half covered, gloved hands empty but ready. I didn't think. I ran. The snow grabbed at my legs, every step a fight. Behind me, voices shouted, not English, sharp and angry, carrying through the wind. My car was only 20 feet away. Keys already in my glove, I fumbled, slipped, and caught myself. The sound of crunching boots closed in. I yanked the door open, slammed it shut, and hit the lock just as one of them grabbed the handle. His face flashed in my window, pale, furious, eyes wild. I jammed the gear shift into drive. The tires spun on the ice, fishtailing until they finally caught traction. The Subaru's headlights flared behind me. Someone shouted again, a sound halfway between a command and a curse. I didn't look back. For 20 minutes I drove blind through the storm, heart pounding so loud it drowned out everything else. When I finally saw the flicker of a gas station sign, I pulled in crooked, breathing like I'd sprinted a mile. The lot was empty except for one pickup under the awning. A man in a flannel jacket stepped out, mid-40s. With a calm voice, "You all right, buddy?" I nodded, shaking. "There is a silver Subaru parked on Highway 218 behind us." Silver Subaru. 3 men. They tried. He didn't wait. "Come inside, get warm." He handed me a cup of burnt coffee and called the sheriff. Half an hour later, a deputy arrived. I told him everything, the stranded car, the men and the rope I thought I saw. He wrote it all down, jaw tight. "That stretch gets bad," he said. "You're lucky your tires held." He promised to check it out. When I called the next morning for an update, he said they'd found tire marks, footprints, but no car, nothing but an old scarf half buried in the snow. That was it. It's been a year. I still drive that route sometimes for work, but never at night. Whenever the snow starts falling and the radio turns to static, I grip the wheel tighter, because every time I pass that stretch near Hawthorne, I see it just for a heartbeat, a faint pair of orange hazard lights flickering through the trees. And for that split second, I feel the same cold rush in my chest, like they're still there, waiting for another driver who can't ignore someone asking for help. The first sound was soft enough that I convinced myself it was snow sliding off the roof. The second sound wasn't. That one had rhythm. That one was walking. I'd just moved into a small rented house on the edge of Redfield, Michigan, the kind of place you take when you're broke, heartbroken, and too stubborn to move back in with your parents. Old wooden floors, walls that leaned slightly, and a furnace that groaned like it hated its job. Still, it was mine. That November, a cold snap hit early. The first snowstorm rolled in the same week I unpacked my boxes. By the time I got the heater working, the wind outside already sounded like an animal clawing at the siding. It was the kind of night that made you grateful for walls. I'd just finished a late shift at the diner. Dinner, instant noodles. Company, a half-empty bottle of wine. I crawled into bed around 11 p.m., phone in hand, scrolling aimlessly through social media until my eyes blurred. That's when I heard it. Thud, right above my head. I froze. Listened. Probably snow sliding, I told myself. Old roofs make weird sounds. No big deal, I went back to scrolling. Thud. Thud, thud, slower this time. Even spacing, moving across the ceiling. I muted my phone and stared upward. The sound traveled bedroom corner to hallway, then stopped. My pulse hammered. The furnace kicked on with a loud clunk, making me jump. I laughed under my breath. "You're jumpy," I whispered. "It's just ice." Still, I couldn't shake the image of boots pressing against old wood above me. After a few minutes of silence, curiosity won. I slipped into my jacket, grabbed a flashlight, and stepped outside. Snow came sideways in the wind, biting cold. My slippers sank ankle deep as I walked out to the street to get a clear view of the roof. That's when I noticed it. Half the roof was coated in white. The other half, directly above my bedroom, was almost bare. A clean strip was cut across it like something had been pacing back and forth, brushing the snow away. No branches touched that side. No vents or chimneys. I stared up until my eyes watered from the wind. Then I went back inside fast, locking the door twice. The house was silent again until I saw the floor. Tiny puddles, small dots of melted snow led from the front door, past the stairs, toward the back of the house. My shoes were still on the mat, and at the start of the trail was a clear, deep boot print, large, not mine. I stood there too scared to breathe. The hallway stretched ahead, shadowed and narrow. I couldn't tell if I was alone. Slowly, I pulled my phone from my pocket and whispered, 911, 911. What's your emergency? I think someone's in my house, I said. There are footprints, wet ones. Are you alone? The dispatcher asked. Yes. Go outside right now. Wait for officers. I obeyed. I stepped into the storm and crossed the street, every nerve in my body screaming. My house looked smaller from out there, one lonely light still glowing from my bedroom window. Upstairs. Then movement. A shape appeared behind the curtain, tall, broad-shouldered, standing, completely still. He looked down at me, not moving, not hiding, just watching. My voice cracked as I whispered into the phone. He's there. He's in my room. Stay on the line, the dispatcher said. Units are en route. It felt like forever before I saw the flashing blue lights of the patrol car through the snow. By then, the shadow in the window was gone. 2 officers went inside first. I waited outside, shaking so hard I could hear my own teeth click. After 10 minutes, one of them waved me in. The boot prints were real, a dotted path of melted snow across the floor, up the stairs, and into my bedroom. The window latch above my bed had been broken clean off. He came in through here, the older officer said, shining his flashlight on the sill, climbed the fence, probably onto the roof, and forced the window. My stomach turned. He saw me go outside. He waited. The younger cop nodded grimly and slipped past you on his way in. They found one of my kitchen knives lying near the hallway wall. He must have grabbed it while I was outside. Anything missing? They asked. I looked around. The TV is still there. Laptop on the desk. Wallet untouched. Nothing is gone. So it wasn't robbery, I said quietly. Neither of them answered. Finally, the older one said, change your locks. Sleep somewhere else tonight. I crashed on my coworker's couch for 3 nights. When I finally went back, the landlord had installed new deadbolts and a heavy window latch. But that house never felt the same. Every creak of the floorboards sounded deliberate. Every gust of wind against the siding made me flinch. I moved out by spring and told everyone it was because of the heating bills. That was a lie. Because 2 weeks after the break-in, I found something. It was wedged between the siding and the window frame outside my bedroom. A cigarette butt, crushed flat, with a lipstick smudge on the filter. I don't smoke. No one I know smokes, whoever had stood above my bed that night. They'd waited there long enough to have a smoke break. It's been over a year. I live in a new place now, a different city, with better locks. But when snow starts falling heavy and the roof pops from the weight, I still freeze for a moment, because that sound isn't just snow anymore, it's boots, crossing a bare strip of roof, remembering the way in. And occasionally, when I lie perfectly still, I swear I can feel it again, the faint vibration above me. Thud, thud, thud. The order said, House 47, Hollow Ridge Lane. But when I got there, the road ended at 45 and the man waiting on the porch wasn't supposed to exist. I'd been delivering food for Meal Rush for almost 3 years, long enough to see the worst of people at midnight drunks, liars, fake addresses, creepy customers who'd open the door half naked. But that night in Hollow Ridge, I learned there's one kind of delivery you never come back from. It was the Friday before Thanksgiving. Temperature had dropped to 15 degrees. Most drivers had logged off hours ago. But rent was due and I needed the extra tip. At 9:47 p.m., my phone buzzed. New order, Calvin M. House 47, Hollow Ridge Lane. 1 item. Double cheeseburger combo. $21 with tip. Too simple to ignore. I grabbed the bag from Roscoe's Diner, nodded to June at the counter, and stepped into the freezing dark. She called after me, Hollow Ridge? Don't stay out there long, Nate. That road's bad luck. I laughed it off. But the truth is, Hollow Ridge wasn't on my usual route. It was out past the lumberyard, near the tree line where the road narrowed to a single lane. 15 minutes later, the town lights disappeared behind me. The only glow came from my high beams bouncing off falling snow. GPS said I had 2 miles left. Then one, then arrived. The house sat at the very end of the lane, old, 2-story, paint peeling, porch light flickering. I parked at the bottom of the drive, left the engine running for warmth, and stepped out with the paper bag. The crunch of snow under my boots was the only sound. I climbed the porch steps and raised my hand to knock. Before I could, the door opened. A man filled the frame. 40-something, maybe. Tall, gaunt face, pale eyes that caught the porch light wrong. He wore a heavy flannel jacket that hung loose like it belonged to someone else. "Delivery," I said, forcing a smile. "Cheeseburger combo?" He nodded slowly. "You can set it on the counter. The kitchen's right there." He stepped aside, holding the door open. Behind him, the hallway was dark except for a faint light somewhere deeper inside. Normally, company policy says never go in, but his tone didn't sound like a request, it sounded like a command. Still, something in my gut told me no. "Sorry, man," I said, half laughing. "We're not allowed inside. You can grab it here." His face didn't change. He just stared at me a second too long, then, "Are you sure?" "It's cold. Just put it in the kitchen." "Yeah," I said quickly. "Policy, sorry." I set the bag on the porch rail and started backing away. That's when I heard it, a muffled thud from somewhere behind the house. Not the wind. Not a branch. There was a sound that carried significant weight. The man's eyes flicked toward it, then his gaze shifted back to me. "Are you okay?" I asked carefully. He blinked once, then smiled, but it wasn't a normal smile. It was slow, deliberate, and didn't reach his eyes. "Wind knocks things around," he said softly. The way he said "wind" made my stomach twist. I nodded quickly and turned to leave. Halfway down the driveway, the porch light went out. I froze. Snow swirled around me. The world suddenly darker than it should have been. I looked back. The doorway was empty now. Just black. The only thing left was the faint outline of the food bag sitting untouched on the rail. I reached my car and slammed the door. As I shifted into reverse, something moved in my mirror. The man was walking fast along the side of the house, not toward the front door, toward the back, and he was holding something long and dark in his hand. At first, I thought it was a shovel. Then the light caught it. It was a rope, thick and coiled, with something metallic glinting at the end. My chest tightened. I threw the car into drive and floored it. The tires spun, caught, and launched me backward down the driveway, snow spraying up in white clouds. The man didn't shout. Didn't chase. He just stopped halfway through the yard, staring at me. The porch light flickered back on behind him, casting his face in pale yellow. I'll never forget that expression. Not anger, not fear. Just disappointment. I drove straight back into town, parked under the diner's neon sign, and sat there shaking. June came out when she saw me through the window. "Jesus, Nate, you look like hell." "What happened?" I told her everything, the house, the noise, the rope. She frowned. "Hollow Ridge? Who'd you say the order was for?" "Calvin M." Her brow furrowed. "Honey, there's no Calvin M around here. And Hollow Ridge doesn't go up to 47. It ends at 45. I stared at her. "No, the app said..." She grabbed a menu pad, scribbled something down, and pulled out her phone. "Show me the order screen." I opened the app. The order was gone. No history. Even the tip notification had disappeared. She exhaled slowly. "You better call the cops." The police sent an officer to take my statement. He listened, expressionless, then said they'd check it out. The next day, I called back for an update. They'd gone to Hollow Ridge. There was no House 47, between 45 and the forest line. The road just stopped. Dirt, snow, and nothing else. No house. There were no tire tracks visible. No footprints, nothing. I quit Meal Rush 2 weeks later. Took an overnight warehouse job instead, fewer doors. Fewer strangers. Sometimes, though, when I'm driving home after midnight, I see lights in the trees near that part of town. There is a faint yellow glow that resembles a single porch bulb swinging in the wind. And sometimes my phone buzzes. New number. No name, with a text that says, "Order ready." Same address. People always ask why I don't do deliveries anymore. I tell them it's the pay or the weather or the crazy hours. But what's really going on? It's because one night I found a house that wasn't supposed to exist, and a man who wasn't waiting for food. He was waiting for me. He stood in my backyard, perfectly still, didn't knock, didn't move, just stared at my house like he'd been waiting for me to notice. I got off work around midnight that Thursday. It was late October, just before the first snow fell. You could smell the cold coming, that metallic scent that hangs in the air when the ground's about to freeze. All I wanted was to grab a burger, go home and pass out on the couch. I worked as an assistant manager at a hardware store just outside Brookdale, Ohio, a quiet town where nothing bad ever seemed to happen. That night, the streets were empty, the pavement damp from earlier rain, and the orange glow from the streetlights made everything look a little unreal. By the time I pulled into my driveway, the neighborhood was silent. No dogs are barking, no cars, just that low hum of power lines in the cold. My house sat at the end of a small cul-de-sac, one story, fenced yard, tiny porch light. I'd been renting it for 8 months since my breakup. Supposed to be a fresh start, it was peaceful, perhaps too peaceful. I carried my takeout inside, kicked off my boots, and tossed my jacket on the couch. The smell of fries filled the living room as I turned on some random true crime show, the kind you half watch while you eat. Halfway through my meal, I realized something. I hadn't locked the back door after taking the trash out earlier. I stood up, wiping my hands, and walked toward the kitchen. That's when I saw it. Through the sliding glass door, beyond the reflection of my face, there was someone standing in my backyard, a man. At first, I froze. He wasn't moving, just standing about 20 feet away, near the back fence. The porch light hit part of his face. Young, maybe mid-20s, pale skin, dark hoodie pulled low. His eyes, they looked empty, like he wasn't really seeing me, just through me. My brain scrambled for an explanation. Neighbor, drunk, someone lost? I slid the door open just a few inches and called out, "Hey, you okay out there?" He didn't respond. "Yo, you're in my backyard. You need to leave." Nothing. Not even a flinch. Then slowly he turned his head toward me. Deliberate. Controlled. That tiny motion made every muscle in my body lock up. Without a word, he started walking toward the gate, calm, unhurried. When he reached it, he unlatched it from the inside and stepped out onto the street. That's when I remembered something. I always locked that gate. Always. I watched until he disappeared into the dark between the streetlights, then quickly locked the door, my hands shaking. I told myself it was just some drunk guy from the bar down the road. Brookdale wasn't dangerous, just weird occasionally. Still, I poured a whiskey to calm my nerves and sat back down, eyes flicking between the TV and the door. After 20 minutes, I started to relax. The show droned on and the rain started again, soft and steady against the windows. I was half asleep when I heard a noise. Thud. Then another. The sound was coming from the backyard. I muted the TV. Thud. Thud. Scrape. My blood ran cold. It was coming from the sliding door, the same one he'd stood behind earlier. I turned my head slowly. He was there again, pressed against the glass, hands gripping the handle, jerking it violently back and forth, his face inches from the door. Eyes wide, breath fogging the glass. "Hey," I shouted, backing up. "Stop! I'm calling the cops!" He slammed his shoulder against the door. Once. Twice. The glass rattled but didn't break. I grabbed my phone with shaking fingers and dialed 911. 911. "What's your emergency?" "There's someone trying to break into my house. He's at the back door right now." "Is he armed?" I don't know. Please just send someone." As I spoke, the banging stopped. He pressed his face closer to the glass, eyes locked on mine. His expression was blank, not drunk, not scared. Just wrong. Then, without a word, he turned and vanished toward the side of the house. "Stay inside," the dispatcher said. "Lock all doors and windows. Officers are on the way." I did exactly that, every latch, every window, every blind. Then I waited. 5 minutes felt like 50. Then came the sound again, not at the back door this time. The front. Heavy pounding, followed by shouting, "Brookdale Police! Open up!" I ran to the door, heart hammering. 2 officers were on the porch, lights flashing through the windows. They didn't even have to ask which way he went. One of them was already in the backyard, flashlight cutting through the rain. Moments later, I heard shouting, "A struggle! Get down! Get down! Hands behind your back!" I peered through the kitchen window. They had him pinned in the mud, face pale, eyes wild. He thrashed, screaming nonsense until they cuffed him and hauled him toward the car. When one of the officers came back to speak to me, I was still shaking. "You okay?" he asked. "Yeah, I think so." "Who the hell is he?" "Name's Brian Keller. Local guy. We've picked him up before. Looks like he's on something heavy tonight." "Did he say why he was here?" The officer's face tightened. Wouldn't answer. Just kept repeating something over and over, couldn't make it out. They checked the doors and the fence and told me I'd been lucky the glass held. By 1:30 a.m., they left, the flashing lights fading down the wet street. For the next few days, I tried to shake it off. I told myself it was just a random drug case. Wrong house, bad night, but every time I walked past that door, I could still see his breath on the glass. That was the fogged imprint of where his face had been. A week later, the police followed up. They said he'd been released after detox, no charges filed. Mental evaluation, they said. That should have been the end of it, but I kept checking the cameras I'd installed. Motion light, doorbell cam, even one by the gate. For 2 weeks, nothing happened. Then one night, the motion alert pinged at 3:12 a.m. I opened the live feed. The backyard was empty. Except for one thing, my porch light was swinging, slowly, back and forth. It was as if someone had just brushed past it. People always say small towns are safe. That's what happened here. It could never happen here. They're wrong, because I still live in Brookdale, and some nights, when the rain hits the glass just right, I see it again. A faint fog mark at the center of the door, the outline of a face pressed against it, and I can't help but think he wasn't trying to break in that night. He was trying to finish something he'd already started.